the New York Times and CNN and all of these phony media outlets will be out of business, folks. They'll be out of business because there'll be nothing to write and there'll be nothing of interest. So nobody has done what this administration has done. And I agree, it's different from an agenda, which is much different than ours, and it's certainly not your agenda, that I can tell you.
Thank you.
It's about open borders. It's about letting people flee into our country. It's about a disaster and crime for our country. So they don't like Donald Trump, and I don't like them because they're very dishonest people. Remember this also about the New York Times. When I won, they were forced to apologize to their subscribers. They wrote a letter of apology. It was the first time anybody's ever done it because they covered the election incorrectly. So if the failing New York Times has an anonymous editorial, can you believe it? Anonymous, meaning gutless, a gutless editorial. We're doing a great job. The poll numbers are through the roof. Our poll numbers are great. And guess what? Nobody is going to come close to beating me in 2020 because of what we've done. We've done more than anybody ever thought possible in, it's not even 2 years. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We wanted to get back to that because this is President Trump's first comment about the opinion piece that was published in the New York Times anonymously. It was signed a senior White House administration official. Let's get to Eamon Javers for more on the story. Eamon.
Yeah, Melissa, that was an astonishing moment right there. You saw the president standing in the middle of the room at the center of the carpet defending himself and his presidency against what he called a gutless editorial anonymously published in the New York Times, criticizing the New York Times and the media generally for its criticism of him, defending his administration in terms of its economic successes and also his policy wins. The president very, very defensive there and also very, very supported there in that room. You heard the cheers from the group of sheriffs who had been assembled for that particular event. This is a crowd that really likes this president of the United States, and he was basking in their approval there on a day in which he has been forced to respond to this Bob Woodward book, which includes some scathing criticism of him, allegedly from his own members of his cabinet and his administration, and now this anonymous administration official saying that the president is in effect doing harm to the country and that there is a group of officials inside the president's own administration who have decided to simply thwart him from within until his administration is over. It's an astonishing moment in this presidency. We've never seen anything like it, Melissa.
All right, Eamon, thank you. Eamon Javers coming to us from the White House. The president specifically said about the New York Times that they will be out of business, that the New York Times does not like him, he does not like the New York Times, and that they are very dishonest people. Will this affect, and we're going to look at this through the lens of the stock market, of the markets, of the economy, will this affect the Trump agenda, which has been positive as a whole for the stock market, Pete?
You know, it's interesting. Every time the president either tweets or just seems to want to come out and speak, you know, many of the things that he's saying right now, he can back up in terms of the economic situation. But you just wonder, are we in a better position in terms of some of the trade or not? And that's something I think if he can get through this negotiation, a lot of people will be applauding how he's doing if he can get through with Canada, with China and all the rest of it, and maybe bring down some of the negativity that we're hearing right now about the president and what's happening abroad. Because as a from the market's perspective, that's what we're all looking at right now.
Yeah. Anonymous op-ed comes out, the Bob Woodward book comes out, and we are weeks away from the midterm elections, which they're going to be close. I mean, as it is, they were already called to be very close in terms of whether or not Republicans could hold on to a majority there. What do you think? Impact?
I think it will probably blow over quickly because I mean, he is the most divisive, and I don't say that in the way we talk about it normally. I mean, people feel very strongly one way or another. And I don't think, as damning as this editorial, and as unusual as that is, I think that the ones who love him, they're still going to love him, and those who don't, absolutely won't, no matter what, no matter how good the economy is, no matter what. And those who love him, no matter what, they're sticking with him.
I don't think it derails any of the agenda. The agenda is a bipartisan effect. Democrats have been complaining about unfair trade with China. So Republicans have been complaining about unfair trade with China. So I don't think it derails that. I think the conclusion to that will be a rip higher to new highs within the marketplace. So I think heading into it, you're going to have a lot of headlines that are tradable. I don't think that any of them are realistically long-term, long-lasting effects on the market.
So you're saying it's all about trade? Just so
I think it's about
so
trade.
too.
I think it's once we get a resolution to that. I don't think the midterms. It's almost as if the Republicans have conceded, quasi-conceded the House.
That's the assumption.
That's the assumption. I don't think that's the case. I think that when you listen to the media, I think there's a quasi-concession on behalf of the Republicans. I don't think.
So if that happens, does that, I mean, in terms of getting tax cuts 2.0 across, in terms of a potential infrastructure plan, that's threatened, no? I mean, if that consensus, if that thought.
There is a thought that they're going to hold back on tax 2.0 because they don't want to create an issue going into the midterm election. So that could already be, off the whiteboard, so to speak.
Whether trade induced or not, to me, the real concerns is the fact that emerging markets continue to break down, that global currency, the volatility in currencies is at an alarming rate. Mary Erdos talked about it delivering Alpha that day. She talked about that being one of their major concerns. We think, maybe correctly, by the way, that our market's impervious to that. I would push back and say at a certain point, it's going to matter. I'm just not sure what point we are in that sort of timeline yet.
One last thing I would say, Jeremy Siegel today on the Noon Show was talking about exactly the markets he talked about. If we work out with Canada and we work it out with China, he sees 10% upside.